Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Glad that you're here, and I'm super excited about our teen session tonight. And so just know that we're all sharing in this together. This is as much for me as it is for anyone who is joining us tonight. You all have your audio muted, so you're all Zoom experts. Thank you to our pandemic. Feel free to ask questions at any time to the chat box, and yeah, directions on how to access Spanish interpretation is coming up next. Although, yeah, I think that all of us, we don't have Spanish speaking families on quite yet. Okay, well, thank you so much, Pam. I hope that you all have had a chance to meet her. She is wonderful, and thank you so much to the center here for being so supportive of families. I'm just going to keep, the session is recorded, so just to keep that in mind. And if you don't have something to take notes with, I definitely recommend it. I think you all have met me, but just in case, this is my family, my husband, Andrew, my daughter, Abigail, and Luke. And Abby's a 5th grader and Luke is a 2nd grader. Abby thinks that she's 11 going on 17. So hence the reason I'm preaching to myself tonight. So let's just jump into an introduction tonight. Our session tonight is called A Guide on the Side, the Consultant Parent. And I absolutely feel this way, that first of all, your kids are babies and toddlers, and then the next thing you know, they have driver's permits. And it's just like, where does the time go? I feel like we just think they're going to stay little, and they start to grow up. And I used to be very excited for the teen years, but as my daughter got into the adolescent stage, it's like she changed overnight. And I was like, I don't think I'm excited for the teen years anymore. It seemed as though I wasn't needed anymore, except until I was needed. For example, Mom, you forgot to give me my allowance, or but I want to listen to whatever I want to on Spotify. Why do I have to check in with you about, and on and on it goes. And so I'm kind of entering into this season with a little bit of trepidation. But at the same time, I want to enter into it with joy, because parenting really is an adventure, and I want to find a way to enjoy these years rather than dread them. So as I wrote here, our teens no longer need parents who get them dressed and keep them from crossing busy streets. And it's easy to stay in that mode of babies and toddlers and grade school kids. But that our kiddos don't need that parent anymore. They need a different parent that also enters into a new stage of parenting as they enter into a new stage of adolescent and teen life. So what do they need in this time of their lives? And that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So in this session, we're going to explore parent and child needs in this season. We're going to consider secure and insecure roadmaps. We're going to learn healthy and unhealthy parenting styles. And we're going to discover ideas for healthy parenting where everyone benefits. So jumping into exploring parent and child changes. So your child or your youth, your adolescent, these are the types of changes that we'll see, at least just a few. Of course, this is not an expansive list, but Dr. Charles Fay, which is the author of what is a part of what we'll talk about tonight. He's from the Love and Logic Institute. And he wrote a book on parenting teens, and this is from his book. He said, children go through more physical changes in 5 years of adolescence than at any other time during their lives. So think about that. Think about when your kids started getting their first teeth, and when they started crawling, and when they started walking, and when they started talking. And although those seem like really big changes, right? And yet research shows that actually the adolescent stages brings the most physical changes during their lives, including brain development. Abstract thinking begins instead of concrete thinking. They start to think abstractly. Their hormones start kicking in. They go through major growth spurts, and with the hormones comes mood swings. Their bodies actually also produce more oil. So that's why there's the possibility of acne, or you see acne start showing up. And they also have bigger decisions to make. So now we're getting into the psychology of it, where they're making bigger decisions on the friends they want to have, the grades they want to have, whether they're going to say yes to drugs or alcohol or sex. And they're thinking about their future. What do I want to do? Maybe they feel anxious about their future. So along with their physical changes, they have psychological things that are going on. This is also when they decide how they're going to use that internal control system that we are all hoping that they have, that hopefully we've been able to help develop in their younger years. And that is this question: how will this next decision affect my life? So if I am offered drugs, how will this decision affect my life? Not how will this affect my moment, or can I handle this right now? But instead, that internal healthy control system that says cause and effect. How will this decision affect my life? And that's what we're hoping is established in them. And if it's not, we're here to help guide them towards that place. So having said all of that, this adolescent and youth stage kind of comes down to they don't want to be controlled. They want to be able to make decisions. There is something in them that says, I want to feel big because I'm getting bigger, and I want to make bigger decisions. And that's actually wonderful, because eventually they're going to head off to college or a trade school or something else. And we won't be there to help guide them through those decisions. At least we may not be in the same physical space. And so it's good for them to have that desire to make decisions, because if they make a poor decision, which they will, and which they have, we're there right under the same roof to hopefully help guide them. Well, what about parent changes? And we change as parents, and this, depending on how we change, would depend on what our comfort level is. And I remember my mom telling me some parents like the baby stage, some like the toddler stage, and some like the adolescent stage. And that's actually very true. And she didn't know this, but that's actually proven as well by psychologists, that some parents just feel more comfortable in certain stages. And so when we feel comfortable, it's harder to change, and it's harder to adapt to that next stage. Our next slide, we're going to be talking about what's called the circle of security. And there's the top half and the bottom half of the circle that we'll get into. And as we look at that, I want to ask you to think about, where do you feel most comfortable in? We're going to talk about our shark music, and how do we respond or react when we hear our shark music, and what is shark music? The interesting thing here is that we want to hold on to what we know is best, or what we once knew is best. And at that time, it's that we needed to have more control over our little ones, maybe even just to keep them alive. For example, if they're going to run across the street, we're not going to give them a choice on whether they run across the street with a car coming or not. We're just going to say no, right? But now we're in a new stage where we need to practice sharing control. And so what does that look like? And how do we do that based on our comfort level? I'm cruising along. So if any of you have questions, please, by all means, let me know. So circle of security, this is the circle that I mentioned. And what circle of security means is basically raising kids who are secure. And the circle of security is a beautiful example of attending to our child's needs. And you see that on the left side, the top has both has hands, which is your hands as their parent, extending out. And the top half is called a secure base, and the bottom half is a safe haven, which kind of in a nutshell describes what they need on that part of the circle. So the top half of the circle, secure base, that's when our kids go out exploring. And I know in this slide, it's little babies or toddlers in the slide, but I really want you to imagine your teenager, your adolescent in this, in those images there. But your secure base is when our kiddos want to go out and explore. They want to go try something new. And so they head out to explore. Now, when they're real little, then, they're going to head out to walk for the first time, but when they're older, they're going to go get their driver's permit. There's a lot of, you're going to, in some ways, see our kids on the top half, maybe more often than on the bottom half, but they're going to be headed out to do different things, trying a sport for the first time. Driving for the first time is, of course, a really big one. Even going into junior high and having different teachers for different subjects instead of being in one classroom. These are all explorations for them. And when they go out, what they need from us is to support their exploration. And so that's what the little one's saying there, or our youth, support my exploration. And what do they need? It says there in the box on the right side, watch over me, delight in me, help me, enjoy with me. Something I had been saying to my daughter as she gets older is, it's like she's almost as tall as I am now, and I'll say things like, "Oh, you're getting older, and you're going to leave soon, and just a few years, basically." And I began to realize that there was a time that she appreciated that, but I realized actually just recently that she actually wants me to enjoy this new stage for her. She wants me to enjoy her getting older. And I noticed that. And I actually said to her this week, you know what? I'm so happy for you. And this is just such an adventure being, seeing you grow up. This is just so great. And I could see something in her just go, oh, thank you. And that's a need that they have is rather than pull them back into this other stage that maybe I feel more comfortable with, they want us to enjoy this new stage. So watch over me, delight in me, help me, and enjoy with me. Now, there's other times that our kids need a safe haven, and that's the bottom half of the circle, where they, let's say it's the first day of ninth grade, and it's like, oh, I'm on this big, huge Wahai campus, and I'm going out to explore. It's like, we're encouraging our kids, you can do it, you got this. And then when they come home, they're coming home for that. I'm coming back to you. And what do I need when I come home for my first day of ninth grade? Protect me. Something might have happened that I just was like, well, this crazy thing happened and I need your advice. Comfort me. Maybe something went down with a friend of theirs that was sad. So they're coming in for safe haven. Delight in me. Tell me about your day. What was it like? How did you feel about so-and-so? What, you're delighting in what they went out to explore. And then lastly is organize my feelings. I think probably all of you have seen your kids kind of be all over the board with their feelings. And maybe it comes out sideways. They're upset about something, but they're yelling at you instead. It has nothing to do with you. You don't know what's going on. But as you sit down with them, start to ask them questions, maybe about their day, or, you're kind of probing to think to yourself, what's going on here? You're helping them organize their feelings. And there comes that aha moment, right? When they're like, oh, yes, that is exactly what it is. And that's the part of that safe haven, is being able to provide that place of organize my feelings. And again, going back to all the physical changes that they're experiencing, and all of the concrete versus abstract abilities that they're developing, feelings about themselves. There's so many things that are going on with them that to come in and have us as a guide on the side help organize their feelings is a really important part of their development. Something Circle of Security says is here on the bottom: always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Whenever possible, follow my child's need. Whenever necessary, take charge. And so I'm going to send these notes out to all of you, because this is something I've tried to memorize. Always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And tonight we don't have time to go into what Circle of Security means by bigger, stronger, wiser, kind. But basically, by bigger, they're not saying be big and like tower. What they're saying is for yourself. Be bigger than how your child or youth might want to be controlling you. Be bigger than that. Stay in control of yourself. Stronger is that to be strength for our kids, but also for yourself. Wiser is exactly what it sounds like. Giving out wisdom, and then of course kind. And I think kindness needs to make a comeback, and we can do it. We can bring kindness back. And so to be kind to our kids is such a gift. And then whenever possible, follow my child's need. What is it that they need? Which part of the circle are they on? And therefore, what do they need? And then whenever necessary, take charge. Sometimes it's like, no, I'd like you to give me your phone right now. And, moments call for that. No, you may not take the car tonight. And that's okay, because when it's necessary to take charge. All of us have that gut instinct as parents that it's time to take charge. And that is perfectly okay and necessary to do at times. Now I want to just spend just another slide on circle of security. And this part is more for you and what I talked about with shark music. So what happens is that, the top half and the bottom half have affect us different ways. And in fact, sometimes what our child needs actually makes us feel uncomfortable, or we're triggered by it. So I feel more comfortable on the top half. I love when my kids are trying something new. I'm just like their greatest cheerleader. I'm like, you can do it. You've got this. Yes. But when they come in for the comfort and everything, I'm just like, oh, really? Okay, sure. I got a hug for you. Okay, bring it in. Bring it in. I got you. But that doesn't come as natural to me. So where do you see? For some of you, it might be like, yeah, I love the comforting. That's my jam. But others of you might be like, yeah, I love it when they go out and explore. So let's break that down for ourselves as parents here a little bit more. So your child's need. When your child's need requires a response that is not comfortable for you, then that's when you might hear shark music. And the way Circle of Security describes that is, if you can imagine you're at the beach and you're, doesn't that sound great right now? Let's say it's August and you're at the Oregon coast. And you just got there, you've parked, maybe you're taking some time out just for yourself. So it's just you're walking down a path and you can hear beautiful saxophone and piano music playing in your mind. And it's just like, wow, this is like so good to be here. And then you reach the beach and it's like, oh, you take your shoes off, socks off, or sandals off, whatever you're wearing, and you just go and just walk and just start wading into the water. So that feels great. What about, I want you to imagine that exact same scene. You pull up, you park, you're walking down on the beach. The whole scene is exactly the same, except instead of the saxophone and piano music playing, what instead you hear is da-na, 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 na, 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 na. Okay, raise your hand if you remember what movie I'm talking about. Jaws. That feels a little scary, right? That's shark music. Is that, when your child does or has a need that makes you hear shark music, you feel uncomfortable. Now, what is it that you feel? You might feel it might elicit loneliness. If they're a senior in high school, you might be like, oh my gosh, they're all excited, but I'm over here crying. Maybe you're going to feel lonely, or maybe they're going to go do something that's okay to do, but it feels unsafe to you. That's how it feels. It's shark music. Maybe you feel rejected by something that they need, but you feel rejected. Maybe you feel abandoned or angry or controlled. So you feel in that uncomfortable feeling. You have a couple of choices at that point. You can respond to your child's need in spite of the discomfort that it causes you. Or what we often naturally do is we protect ourselves from further pain. And how do we do that? We override our child's need. So then we want to limit our response to them, or we want to avoid a response altogether. Why? Because we're protecting ourselves. If you protect yourself from uncomfortable feelings, then guess what? Our child's need goes unmet. And over time, she or he will begin to express that need indirectly, which then, of course, creates difficulty for us. So that's why I like to talk about this tonight, is just how to care for yourself. It's not just that our child's needs goes unmet, but it's also that we miss an opportunity to grow as a parent if we're able to stop and consider, what does that shark music mean? What does that mean for me? And what is this communicating to me that I need to actually talk to someone about or consider? But reading along here, all parents hear shark music with some of their child's needs. It's completely natural. The parents of secure children recognize their shark music, and often, not always, and it's okay for it to not be always, they choose to find a way to meet their child's need in spite of the temporary pain it causes them. So here's some steps to security if you face this, if you're facing this now or in the future. Number one is recognize the discomfort. Okay, here's my shark music going. And then honor the discomfort, name it. I hurt now because this particular need triggers my shark music. I hurt now, or I feel angry, I feel lonely. Put that, whatever your feeling is, put it in there. So you've recognized the discomfort, you've named what it is, and then number three, respond to your child's need. Hope that makes sense. So far we've talked about introduction. We've talked about changes that parents and children face, at least some of the changes. I know there's a lot more. We've talked about how we can build security in our children, or at least begin to build security in our children, as well as how their new needs, or their needs in general, some of them, might trigger us and what we might be able to do about that. And to finish off our time tonight, I want to talk about Love and Logic's 3 types of parenting styles. So first of all is the helicopter parent. And as you could imagine, a helicopter parent, they're rescuing, they're like, foo, 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 foo. You know, they're coming in to hover, they're fixing, they're solving, they're rescuing. And in many ways, this is a codependent style of parenting. For example, you know, the school calls, you know, oh, Luke forgot his lunch. Okay, I'm on my way. I'll bring you your lunch. Your child comes home, your youth comes home, teacher's being mean. Okay, I'll schedule a meeting with them. Allison is talking about you. I'll call her mom. You're reminding kids about everything. Don't forget about, you know, cleaning your room before you go to bed tonight. Don't forget about taking the garbage out. Don't forget to fill the gas tank up before you get home. Don't forget about the paper that you need to write. It's due by Friday. So we're hovering, we're fixing, we're solving. So here's an example too. You ask the kid to clean their room and they don't. Parent cleans it for them later that day. Where does this come from? Most of the time, helicopter parents fear that their youth are going to fail or make mistakes, because as a helicopter parent, we desperately want our kids to have a good life. So we're afraid they're going to fail, or we're afraid they're going to make mistakes. So let me just do it for you so that you don't fail. We're protecting them from failing. We're protecting them from making mistakes. And it comes from a good heart. We want them to have a good life. And so we think we have to help them a lot for that to happen. But unfortunately, it sends the message to our youth, you aren't capable because I need to help you. And so while our intentions might be good, it sends the message that you're not capable. The next style of parenting from Love and Logic is called drill sergeant parent. I also call this sage on the stage, or the parent yelling from the sidelines. And this is more of an independent style of parenting. Sure, I'll help you with your math. And you start helping them with their math. It's like, never mind, just give it to me. You're not getting it. I'll do it. Or never mind, just talk to your teacher tomorrow. You're not getting it. I must not be the best teacher for you. Yelling a lot. I said, come here now. Or I said, clean your room. You know, it's just, we're commanding. You're not old enough to, our kids want to make a decision. You're not old enough to make that decision. That's why I'm the parent and I make decisions for you sometimes. There's a lot of like, I'm the parent. You're the child. I'm the parent. You're only 13. Okay. I'm going to make this decision. Another example here is that this parent will ask their kid to help with something. And then the kid does help with it, but then the parent kind of makes it better when they're done. Um, the other day, our daughter had just on her own, we didn't even ask her to do this, but she went and shoveled the driveway. And my husband, who's not a drill sergeant parent at all, actually, but we were getting in the car and he decided he was going to kind of get some more of the snow out of the way. Her shoveling was actually fine. I mean, it wasn't perfect by any means, but it was fine. We were going to get out fine and stuff, but he did a little bit more of the shoveling, and she actually said out loud, she said, "Oh, so I guess my shoveling wasn't good enough." And he's like, "Oh no, no, it was fine." And I like just kind of nudged him like, let's just not do that again. But they notice. And where does this drill sergeant parenting style come from? Well, we fear that our youth, again, is going to fail or make mistakes. And because we fear our child, and with that, our fear is that our child won't be successful. And how will that make us look? Or some parents that are drill sergeants, they might just fear, like, how will this make me look if my child doesn't succeed or if they fail? And so I've got to command that this happens. I've got to see this through, and I've got to make sure they don't fail and that they don't make mistakes. And if they do fail, then we're going to talk about it and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So those are kind of things going on for a drill sergeant, is it really comes down to what they fear. And you might notice a common theme between both of these parenting styles. In this parenting style, it sends a message: you aren't capable, so I need to do it for you. But you see that if we go back to the other slide, it sends the message: you aren't capable, so I need to help you. But you see the fear is here too. In both parenting styles, there's fear. And what do? We learned in the last session, when we're afraid, we control. And so in a lot of ways, helicopter parenting and drill sergeant parenting are simply forms of control. How can I control the outcome? How can I make sure, and somehow we think that we have so much control, how can I make sure that my child is successful and happy? And how can I make sure that they have a good life? And how can I make sure I have a good life? Because if they're following all the rules, then I have a good life too. Those are the things we kind of think and goes around in our brains, which is completely natural. Again, Dr. Charles Fay, from one of his e-newsletters, but he has this written in many of his materials. He says, chronic helicopter parenting creates insecure kids who doubt their ability to make good decisions and succeed in the real world. So does clinging to the drill sergeant model. Both styles are the enemy of healthy identity development and can create damaging anxiety and despair. And that's one reason why I talked about circle of security before we got into these parenting styles, is because I think for all of us, when our kids leave our nest, we want them to feel like they're capable, and not just feel like it, but just to say to themselves, I can do it. And if I'm afraid, if I face something I'm afraid of, I can resource, right? I can talk to my mom or my dad, or I can talk to my grandma. I can talk to my close friend. I can talk to another safe, adult in my life, an auntie or an uncle, that they're not doubting themselves on the inside. And how does that happen? It actually happens by them making mistakes and realizing the world hasn't fallen apart, but what did you learn? And now take a risk again. And when they take a risk again, guess what? They're going to do it. They're going to make it. And they're going to say, I'm capable. I can do this. And so allowing our kids to make mistakes and giving our kids that sense of a positive self-image actually helps develop a secure base in them. So let's look at the consultant parent. And this is what I call a guide on the side. And so this is a consultant parent is a confidant. They're an advisor. They support their kiddos. They empathize with them when they make mistakes. And this I call an interdependent style. So it's not codependent and it's not independent, but it's interdependent, where we are in a relationship together and we depend on each other, and we come together as a team. So an example kind of similar to our last ones is, your youth calls, I forgot my lunch. Oh, you must be hungry. What are you going to do? So we're sharing, we're putting the decision making back in their hands. We're not just going to helicopter, I'll rush it down to you. We're not going to drill sergeant. How could you forget your lunch again? Come on, I'm reminding you all the time. Fine, I'll bring it to you. No, we're just saying, oh, first of all, you're thinking back to when you forgot your lunch when you were in high school, right? We have all done it. Oh, what are you going to do? You used your allowance for the whole month and it's only the 5th. Oh, that's such a bummer. Would you like some ideas on how to earn some money for the rest of the month? So that's different than, geez, really, it's only the 5th of the month and your money's gone. Or it's different than, oh, okay, fine, here's another 20 bucks. But no, we're empowering them to make decisions, but we're also not completely leaving them stranded in that decision if they do decide that they want to reach out for some advice. I'm so sorry about the argument with your best friend. I know you've got this, but let me know if you'd like to talk more or need any support. If you'd like, keep me posted on how things go. So we're giving that empathy. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry you had, an argument with your best friend. Must be so hard. And then we're not assuming that they want to confide in us more than that, or that they want to ask for advice. So we say, listen, I know you've got this, and you love your best friend and she loves you or he loves you. And, so I know you guys can work it out, but if you need any support, let me know, I'm here. So that's the guide on the side, is I'm not standing in front of you, and I'm not standing behind you, and I'm not way over there in some other room, but I'm here next to you if you need me. And it sends a message, you are capable, and I'm here if you need me. Dr. Fay shares, consultant parents empower their kids to make decisions, live with the consequences, and see that they are capable of coping with the real world. This style also preserves healthy parent-child relationships. Coping skills plus relationships serve as antidotes for depression and dependency. So I want to break here and see if anyone has any questions, or if there's something you want to share that you learned along the way in this stage of parenting. Okay.
I mean, I can say something.
Yeah, of course.
Like you, have an 11-and-a-half-year-old daughter who is 11 going to 14.
Glad we can relate with each other.
I try really hard to be the guide on the side, but more often than not, I end up being the helicopter or the drill sergeant. And I think that the examples that you're giving are really helpful. Like, oh, you forgot your lunch. I'm actually thinking of an example today. My child forgot her basketball jersey, and of course I rushed it out to her because otherwise she wasn't going to be able to play. But I'm wondering, like, are there any examples that you can give for like times where, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like, your examples are lovely, but they kind of lack bite, I guess. Like, they're not that serious, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I'm wondering about like the stuff that's like harder, like when they're screaming at their sibling, or when they're being really rude to you, like,
yeah,
it's easier to be the guide on the side for stuff like you forgot your lunch or you're out of allowance money, but it's harder when like the siblings are yelling at each other. You know what I mean? It's not a critique of you, but I'm just like, where are those examples?
Yes, and those are very real. Absolutely. And actually, we're going to talk about those. That's a great segue into what's coming up. But there's something that in Love and Logic that we call enforceable statements. And even on like the sibling arguments, what I've started doing in my house is saying that I charge $1 a minute to referee. And that has, for the time being, actually, they've stopped arguing. So sometimes you have to get creative. But the key with what you're asking, it sounds like you're talking about kind of chronic things that you and your kids deal with that affect, your daily life. And when it comes to some of those chronic things like talking back or fighting with your sibling or fighting with your parent, there's different diagnoses to give. If it's chronic, talking back kind of stuff, usually that's a sign, like, for example, you say is that your daughter's the 11.5-year-old. But if she's like continually arguing with you or even her sibling, it might be that her bucket of needing to have some control is low. So a lot of times our kids will be really irritable and argue with us when they're being told what to do all the time. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I'm just diagnosing in this moment. And so sometimes what I'll try to think of is, okay, there's a lot of arguing going on right now. I think that my daughter's haven't been sharing control with her lately. And so I'll think of things that I can share control with her on. Some of those are really simple, like, what would you like for lunch tomorrow? But other things that, especially at her age, she's going to want to share control on some bigger decisions. And so think about, that's one thing to think about, is sharing control. Enforceable statements are things that, to get out of the drill sergeant mode, is actually making statements that you can enforce. So something we talked about the last session is, instead of saying things like, you're if you don't stop doing that, I'm going to ground you, for the next entire year, which, like, I doubt that we can ground our children for a whole year. I mean, that would be really hard. I was joking at the last session that when I was in 9th grade, my parents said they grounded me for life. And so I'm not grounded anymore. But enforceable statements are, I take kids to their friend's house who don't scream at their brothers. And so that we start to develop that internal control system, and I can control that. If she comes to me and says, I really want to go over to my friend's house, then I can say, I give rides to kids who don't scream at their brother. And she can say, am I that kid who screams at my brother? Yeah, I'm that kid who screams at my brother. Those are a few examples. I would be more than happy to connect on more details around this. But I would say it comes down to sharing control and using enforceable statements. And so you're not telling her what to do or telling your other children what to do. You're telling them what you're willing to allow or to do, so you can actually enforce what you're saying. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. That is more along the lines of what I'm looking for, and especially the first piece. I do think that there's an element of control. I'm absolutely a pretty perfectionist, and I'm seeing what you're saying in terms of, it creates kids who are indecisive and can't think on their own. Like, we were at the grocery store today and she asked for ice cream and she'd been good. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And then she literally couldn't decide on an ice cream flavor because she kept asking me. And I was like, it's not for me, it's for you. But because I control so many other things, she didn't in that decision. So.
Sure. Yeah, I would start thinking about ways that you can share control. And like I said, it can, when you think about those things, even simple ways of sharing control are a big deal. Like, we recently started letting our daughter decide when to go to sleep on Fridays. And she was just shocked when we was like, you know what, you're at the age now where, you can decide when you want to go to bed on Fridays. We sleep in every Saturday. And she was just like, what? I get to decide? What? And the first time she stayed up, first couple of Fridays, she stayed up till midnight, of course. And let me tell you, I wanted to be like, seriously, go to bed. You'd be so tired tomorrow. But I didn't say anything. And she was really tired the next couple of Saturdays that she's decided she moved that up an hour. And that was what she decided. And so that was kind of a big thing. But other little things, any way that you can share control with your kids is, I say, do it. Any way you can share control with them, because it helps them feel big. It helps them feel included. So yeah, great question. Appreciate it. Well, let's actually segue into these next couple of slides, because I think this is going to help speak even more, Victoria, to what you said, and maybe some others here too. Key to consultant parenting is just that, to control yourself instead of others. Dr. Charles Fay says that the heart of consultant parenting is the awareness that we can only increase the odds of healthy identity development. We cannot ensure it. Sometimes highly ineffective parents end up with strong kids, and highly competent parents can end up with kids who have big problems. What Love and Logic does guarantee is that we can face life knowing we've done our best. So some ways to control yourself and not others: provide choices within limits. So this is our sharing power opportunity. So this, when we share power, which is we share power by providing choices, it empowers our kids, it enables learning. And then, but I say within limits. Well, Love and Logic says within limits, because we want to, of course, give age appropriate limits. And also based on your values. You don't have to give a choice that would violate your values. The next one is using enforceable statements. So that's what we just talked about, things you can enforce without controlling your child or without making empty threats. Sometimes we just throw things out there because we're tired. It goes back to those triggers. We've heard our shark music. And instead of kind of stopping and recognizing, oh, I hear my shark music. Why do I feel that way? I feel that way because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, now I can respond to my child's need. But sometimes we don't do that. And so we just throw out threats. And that, again, that's okay, because we're human and it's okay. But when you can, use enforceable statements, things you can enforce without controlling your child. Both numbers 2 and 3, providing choices within limits and using enforceable statements, we actually went into detail with those in the first 2 sessions of the Strengthening Parenting series. So let me or Pam know if you'd like those recorded sessions, and we can email those to you. So here's some words to live by from Love and Logic. When we try to hoard control, we lose it. When we share control, we gain it. And why is that? Because this next one, wise parents gain the control they need by giving away the control they don't need. So maybe we don't need the control of, would you like a turkey sandwich today or a ham sandwich? Maybe we don't need that control, so we share it. But when do we need control? What are the bigger things that we might need control on? Well, because we've been sharing control with all these other things, when it comes to something bigger that we feel is beyond the limits of our child's age, then we can gain that control when we need it. So consider, what do you need? What does your child need? Is your child on the top half of the circle or the bottom half? Or are they miscuing? Are they saying, I don't need you, I don't need you, but actually they're on the bottom half and they do need you. But if they know, like, I'm out exploring, support me, delight in me, or I'm on the bottom half, I need some reassurance here, kind of thing. So think about where they're at in the circle. And then what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your child? What does that mean for the situation at hand? So these are just some questions you can ask yourself to stay as that consultant parent and to stay out of that realm of control, I must have control, in the words of Darth Vader. And then lastly, before we end tonight, I want to encourage you to create a vision for your parenting. When you create a vision for your parenting, have that in front of you, because our kids challenge us all the time. And sometimes we just want to give up or give in, and we do, and that's okay. But I think if we have a vision for our parenting, if we imagine our kids, 18 years old, and if that's when they're going to kind of make their debut out into the world, might be later, but it might be then. When you imagine that day happening, how do you want your kids to feel as they enter out into the real world? How do you want to feel? As Charles Fay said earlier, Love and Logic, we can't guarantee that everything's going to go as we hope, but we can know we've done our best. How will you know you've done your best when they're headed out? How will that feel, or what do you think? So if you have, and then work your way back. So if that's my vision, then what does that mean for my parenting? This is what I've written for my vision statement for my parenting, which is, and I've worked on this for over a couple of years, so it can take some time to write what you want to say, but raise kids who are team players, who are kind, loving, believe in themselves and others, and have fun in life. So that's my vision statement for parenting. And when I want to give up or give in, or when I remind myself of my vision, and it just kind of serves as a true north. Love and Logic's vision is raising kids who are responsible and respectful. So you could still that's a wonderful vision statement. You could still theirs, or you could Google, and just get ideas and just be thinking about, kind of mill it around in your mind of, what do I want my vision statement to be for parenting? And then how can that help me when the going gets tough? So here's my daughter fishing this last summer. Any other questions or any other thoughts that anyone wants to share?
I wonder, do you have like a no-go thing? I'm not being really clear. Like, what is the thing that you care about that you're not willing to budge on control wise? Like for me in my house, I am super, super strict on screen time. For me to be able to do this class with you tonight, that means my kids are on a screen, and it means that like I almost don't bother to do classes like this because I can't tolerate them being on screens very much. They get like maybe 3 hours a week. And that's like a thing that I know I am really, really controlling about, but it also really matters to me. Like, where are you finding that you're able to be the guide on the side versus where are you like, nope, this is the thing that I really care about and need to have control over? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And I think what I hear you saying, like in your example of screen time, I don't hear that being controlling. I hear that as a value that you have. And I think that is wonderful to identify your values. And like my daughter would like to have a phone line right now. And it's like, that's not going to happen right now. Well, my other people do. Other people have phones, and I mean, and other people, like in screen time, we are also strict on screen time. Well, other people just get to be on their screens as long as they want to. Okay, well, we're not other people. This is our household. And so I think you can absolutely decide, what are your values, and if your kids push back on that, you can empathize. I understand that. I hear you. But this is how this in our household, I don't know how to say your last name, Litzbarsky. Did I say that right? What a cool last name.
Thanks. It's my last name. It's not the kids or my husband's last name, but yeah, in our household, I get it.
Yeah, in our household, we have 3 hours of screen time a week. Or in our household, and maybe in your household later in life, you will do it differently, but in our household, and just say it with a smile on your face, do your best to not be condemning or sarcastic or things like that. Recognize your triggers, in other words, your shark music, and then just stand your ground with your values, for sure. Another example is certain movies that Abby wants to watch that are rated R. Or they're PG-13, but in our minds, they're rated R, even if they say PG-13 for some of those. And so it's like, not yet. No, not yet. Why not? So-and-so's watched it. Oh, okay, cool. Well, for you, not yet. And sometimes we do explain why, especially at the age that she's coming into. So does that help? Like kind of differentiate between when am I being controlling and when am I simply standing on my values and what matters to me and my household? Does that help?
It does help. And I really like thinking about it like that, because I think I have, I don't know, like drunk the Kool-Aid of like everybody telling me that I'm just being too strict or too controlling. I mean, obviously my 11 and a half year old telling me I'm being too strict or too controlling, but I like if I can think about it as a value, because it's like one of very few that I continue to really stick with. And so that says to me that it's a value and that it's not just me being a jerk.
Yeah, exactly. I think if we have a list of like 52 things that we call our values, then yeah, we might be edging, that might be a little on more the controlling side. But if it's a few things, where it's like these couple of things really matter to me, and that's how it's going to be, that's okay. That's great. And, your kids can decide what are their values later, and they'll think about it. They'll think, oh, my parents had their values, and this is what they, reinforced for our household. And that'll actually be really healthy for them, that there's things that we have that are non-negotiables and not up for debate. So any other questions or comments?
Can I just kind of barge in on when you guys were talking about kind of like setting boundaries with like that screen time and that kind of thing? And
Absolutely.
have you worked very often with families that are split up? Like we split custody with my oldest, who has a lot of behavior issues to begin with, but then I can't control what he does at his mom's house.
Yeah.
Could you just
Yes.
reiterate like what your house rules are here, and it's okay if you do that over there, but it's not allowed here? Or
Yes. And that's what I've recommended. And I have worked with several families in split households. And yes, it's like, that's how it's done at his house. This is how it's done at our house, kind of thing. Thanks for telling me that that's how things are done there, but here's how things are done here. So yeah.
okay. All right.
Great question. Anyone else? Well, before we end tonight, I wanted to recommend a couple of books. And on Victoria's kind of note, even about screen time in their household, screen time and technology is a huge thing, as you all know. And I wanted to recommend tonight, when it came to this discussion, there's two things I would have loved to talk about if we have time, if we had time. But when it comes to adolescence and teen parenting, friendships is would have been a great discussion for us to have, as well as technology, their relationship with technology. So on that note, I wanted to recommend some books. So this is one book that actually the school district, I learned about this book from the school district. And we'll get these, the names of the author and the names of the books in the follow-up email tomorrow. This book, Pam has Raising Humans in a Digital World. So this is about kids' relationship with technology and parenting kids in this digital world. She has 15 copies of this book that are available to you for free. So first come, first serve. So when you get the email tomorrow, respond to the email and let her know you'd like to be the recipient of one of these. But this is an excellent book on helping kids build a healthy relationship with technology. The other one has to do with relationships. And this book right here, I kind of blurred out because of the background I have, but it's by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate, both doctors. One's a psychologist, one's a medical doctor, psychiatrist. It's called Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Their Peers. And so I want to highly recommend this book as well. And again, we'll put the author and titles in the follow-up email, but just maintaining that close relationship, especially as they either are heading into 6th grade or already are there, they're heading into high school, wherever you find your kids, if you got 5th graders, this is the time where they're going to decide who are their friends and why, and maintaining and cultivating your relationship with them, because friends will come and go. How can you hold on to that important relationship with them? So yeah, if there's not any other questions, I want to let you know we have I'm just going to check the chat box really quick. Okay. Our final session we have coming up Tuesday, February 15th, and this will span across all ages, 0 to 18 in terms of parenting, but how to build a relationship that lasts a lifetime. So we will get into a little bit of hold on to your kids kind of message. You can feel free to send me questions ahead of time if you'd like at strongliving34@gmail.com. And I think that's all I got, unless there's anything else.
I don't have a question, but I did have another book for you guys if you are interested.
Okay, great. Yeah.
It is called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk.
Heard of that book.
Yes, and it's amazing. So if you haven't gotten the chance to read it and you can afford to get it, I really recommend it.
I'm just writing it down because we can include that in tomorrow's list as well. How to talk so kids will listen and listen.
So kids will talk.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, it's really good, especially for the kids coming into this adolescence sort of teenage years. So I really recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? Another chat? Thank you. Have a wonderful and healthy evening all. Okay, Victoria had to head out. Okay, great. Well, just a reminder that you're awesome. In case you haven't heard it today, in case you haven't heard it this year or last year or the year before, you're awesome. And I'm so glad you joined us tonight. Hope to see you in 2 weeks and look for the follow-up email tomorrow. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone. Bye.